Imagine, if you will, a place that's celebrated, really, across the galaxy for completely revolutionizing rehabilitation.
Yeah, like turning the whole idea on its head.
Exactly. We're talking about a transformation so profound that what were once these, grim penal colonies, well, now they were proudly called resort colonies.
Resort colonies. Sounds like a joke almost, but they meant it.
Totally. Picture these places of healing, right? Dedicated to mending sick minds where people weren't just locked up but supposedly made whole again. It sounds like the perfect utopian dream, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Like this enlightened, almost miraculous approach to justice, to mental health, to fixing society's problems.
But what if, in this supposed paradise, the cure itself? What if that was actually far more terrifying, way more insidious than any crime it was meant to fix?
And that's the hook, isn't it? That paradox. This shiny promise of doing good, but, maybe hiding something really, really disturbing just underneath.
Mm-hmm. So today we're doing a deep dive into this extraordinary incident. It comes from a starship's unsettling encounter with the Tantalus V colony.
Right. Tantalus V.
Yeah.
A place that for years everyone thought was the gold standard, lauded across the Federation for these amazing humanitarian leaps in treating mental illness and rehabilitating criminals.
So our mission today is to really peel back the layers of this supposed utopia. We want to look closely at that very thin line, sometimes it's almost invisible, between real compassionate therapy and just absolute control.
And the vulnerability of the mind, right? How susceptible we can be to influence, especially when it's subtle, when it works in a way that doesn't just change what you do, but maybe changes who you are.
Yeah, fundamentally alter your essence. It's chilling.
And we'll follow this trail, starting with this mysterious escapee, which leads us to this incredibly revered doctor like a giant in his field, and finally to this device, a device that promised healing, but, well, it delivered something much darker.
Something soul-destroying, really. Our insights, they come directly from this set of audio excerpts, the ship's logs, basically, detailing this really unsettling investigation.
So yeah, let's dive in. Let's unpack this story.
Okay, so it all kicks off with what should have been totally routine, just mundane. A cargo exchange. The USS Enterprise, Captain Kirk in command, just doing a standard drop-off, transferring cargo to Tantalus V.
Standard ops. Now, Tantalus V, originally it was known as a tough penal colony, like hardcore.
Right, historically. But by this time, its whole image had shifted dramatically. Captain Kirk, ever the optimist, and clearly buying into the hype.
He calls it a resort colony.
Exactly. Not a prison, a resort. Which tells you how much things had supposedly changed, how positive the perception was, a beacon of hope for psychiatric rehab.
Yeah, and that perception wasn't an accident. It was carefully managed. Even the ship's surgeon, McCoy, who's usually pretty skeptical about things.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Even he described these places in really positive terms, called them clean, decent hospitals for sick minds. It shows you how strong Dr. Adams' reputation was.
Absolutely. Now, the colony itself, it had this strong security force field. Seems normal enough at first glance, right? Security for a hospital, maybe?
Sure, makes sense on the surface.
Yeah.
But it becomes way more significant later.
Definitely. And there was this specific procedure for opening the field to beam stuff down. This time, the Enterprise was sending research material bomb for the Central Bureau of Penology, Stockholm.
Sounds so official, doesn't it? Something bureaucratic. Just another day of the office in space.
Totally ordinary. But it's exactly in these moments, these routine things, that everything can just flip.
And boy, did it flip fast.
Almost instantly. That cargo transfer is barely complete, and suddenly there's this urgent alarm from Tantalus V. The comms crackle, voices panicked.
Unable to locate one of our inmates. That's the message.
Yeah, and they warn he's a potentially violent case. And then the chilling part. Possibly hidden in the box that just got beamed up to the Enterprise.
Whoa. Imagine being on that bridge. Routine cargo run suddenly becomes an intruder alert. The dread must have been palpable.
Oh, absolutely. The tension just ramps up immediately. On the Enterprise, they find a crewman knocked out cold.
And the cargo case, the one that was supposed to be research materials.
Open and empty. Confirmed. The inmate is on board. Security alerts, red flashing lights. Condition 3. They've got someone dangerous loose on the ship.
And the description they get of this guy, Van Gelder, that's the name at this point, makes it worse. He's not just dangerous, he's extremely dangerous. And clever as well as extremely violent.
This isn't some random patient having a breakdown. This sounds calculated.
Formidable. Someone who knows what they're doing.
And he proves it pretty quickly. He's not disoriented or anything. Kirk eventually confronts him on Deck 14. And guess what? He's wearing an engineering uniform.
A disguise. So he knew the ship layout, knew how to blend in, resourceful.
Very. And he doesn't back down. He pulls a weapon, demands asylum at gunpoint, says he'll disable your vessel first, or destroy your control panel if they try to send him back to Tantalus.
Wow, that's extreme. That's not just an escapee, that's someone desperate, fighting for their life, seemingly.
Absolutely suicidal boldness. It's not inmate behavior. Kirk has no choice, really. Beam him to sickbay, let McCoy figure this out.
Right, dump it in McCoy's lap, and McCoy is immediately stumped. This is a real medical puzzle for him. Van Gelder is clearly agitated, abnormal, but not in any way McCoy recognizes.
He specifically says not schizophrenia, tissue damage, or any condition I'm acquainted with.
Right. It's not textbook. This guy is off the charts, agitated, resisting everything. It takes, what was it, almost a triple dose hypo?
Yeah, a massive dose of tranquilizer just to get him calm enough to even examine. And even then, McCoy says his mind seems to be fighting something.
Even sedated. He's struggling internally.
And his behavior, even subdued, it's just weirdly compelling. McCoy knows he's quite talkative, but not very informative.
Jumbled thoughts, right. Claiming one thing, forgetting it, then claiming something else.
But, and this is the kicker, McCoy says, always was just a ring of truth in it.
See? That's McCoy's intuition. It's not just random noise. There's something real trying to get out, buried under whatever's happened to him.
Fragmented, desperate communication. And his refusal to go back, absolute, I'll die first. That's not just avoiding treatment. That's sheer terror of that place.
Primal fear, which leads to the big shocker.
The big reveal. Then Gelder, struggling through the drugs, can't even remember his own name at first. Then suddenly, this burst of agony and clarity.
And he blurts out, "My name is Simon Ben. I was the director. Director in the Tantal was quality. I was assistant to you. I knew, but they've erased it. Erased it. It just has subverted me."
Erased it. That word just hangs there. It's not memory loss. It's erasure, imposed from outside.
Chilling. And then the computer confirms it. The ship's library ID tape.
No question, this isn't just an inmate. He is Dr. Simon Van Gelder, respected physician, expert. And get this, he was committed to Tantalus just 6 months ago as Dr. Adams' own associate.
Boom. There it is. The whole narrative just collapses.
Instantly. Kirk's facing this massive ethical dilemma. The escape isn't a criminal, he's a colleague of the celebrated Dr. Adams.
Which immediately suggests something is deeply, deeply wrong inside that celebrated colony. It's not just a security breach anymore.
No way. It casts this huge shadow over Tantalus V, that beacon of hope. Suddenly looks like it could be a house of horrors, where even the director's own staff aren't safe.
And for Kirk, reconciling this is tough. Because, like almost everyone, he really looked up to Dr. Adams. Held him in incredibly high esteem.
Yeah, he says it outright, doesn't he? Something like, Adams, in the last 20 years, has done more to revolutionize, to humanize prisons than all the rest of humanity had done in 40 centuries.
That's not just praise, that's practically hero worship. He saw Adams as this legendary figure, a true pioneer. Kirk really believed in the whole Tantalus project.
Absolutely. He thought these old, brutal prisons were gone, replaced by Adams's vision. Not cages anymore. They're clean, decent hospitals for sick minds. A total humanitarian win.
So when Adams first contacts Kirk about Van Gelder, Adams puts on this performance, right? All feigned concern.
Oh yeah, is Dr. Van Gelder all right? Expressing how very concerned he is about his violent state, playing the part of the caring director dealing with a tragedy.
Masterful deflection.
Yeah.
And his explanation for Van Gelder's state. So smooth, so convenient.
Right. He says Van Gelder was doing experimental work using some experimental beam they hoped could help incorrigibles.
And then the kicker. Van Gelder, feeling he couldn't test it on others, tried it on himself. Noble, but foolish.
Adams just shrugs it off. A tragedy, a result of Van Gelder's own choices. Self-inflicted, case closed.
But McCoy isn't buying it. His gut feeling, his medical sense tells him something's off. The story just doesn't add up.
Exactly. McCoy calls Kirk out on it, basically. You don't believe him and you can't explain it. He knows Kirk has doubts, too.
And McCoy brings up his professional duty. As a Starfleet doctor, if something smells fishy,
if something unusual is going on down there, I'm required to enter any reasonable doubts into my medical log. That forces Kirk's hand. He can't just ignore it now.
Nope. Faced with McCoy's valid points, Van Gelder's state, Kirk knows he has to act, even if it means questioning this legendary Dr. Adams he admires so much.
Duty overrides admiration. He says it clearly. By strict interpretation of our Starship regulation, I'm required to initiate an investigation. It's protocol.
especially when it involves a fellow officer, a doctor, potentially being harmed or...
worse. So how does Adams react? He plays it cool, extends this seemingly generous invitation.
I'd take it as a personal favor if you'd beam down and look into it yourself. Like he's got nothing to hide. Come on down, see for yourself.
Makes it seem like they hardly get visitors, happy to oblige. But then, the catch.
Yes, the caveat, that little detail that just jars.
Adams adds almost casually, "Come down with a minimum staff. We're forced to limit outside contact as much as possible."
Ding, ding, ding. Red flag right there. Why does a resort colony, a healing hospital, need to limit outside contact so strictly?
It screams isolation, control. It's the first real crack in that perfect facade.
A big crack. But Kirk decides to go anyway, cautiously. He beams down with Dr. Helen Knoll. She's a psychiatrist, has experience in rehabilitative therapy.
And Kirk mentions knowing her from a Christmas party. Seems random, but tuck that detail away. It comes back later.
Right. Adams keeps up the welcome wagon act, offers a small toast, hospitality, and he lets Kirk keep his phaser. Just asks him to keep it out of sight.
He even jokes, calling the place Devil's Island, maybe trying to be disarming. Or maybe
a little bit of truth leaking out. Who knows? It's creepy in hindsight.
Definitely. Then, during the tour, they meet Leigh, or Alfie, a former inmate, supposedly cured, now working as a therapist there.
And she's super enthusiastic.
Oh.
I love my work, she says. Perfect living proof of Adams' success, right?
Exactly. It's all part of the curated reality, the performance for the visitors, showing off the miracle cures.
And Adams explains his philosophy, his definition of a cure. It sounds so reasonable at first.
Yeah, part of our cure is to bury the past. Why should a person go on living with unbearable memories if there's no necessity? The shifting of memory patterns is basic to psychotherapy.
Framing it as advanced therapy, compassionate even. Removing trauma, alleviating suffering by removing the memory itself. Sounds good, doesn't it?
In theory, maybe, but that's where the line gets incredibly blurry and then just obliterated. Because burying the past can easily become erasing who you are.
It's a slippery slope. From healing to control, to wiping the slate clean in a way that destroys the person. What if those unbearable memories are part of what makes you you?
And that danger wasn't just theoretical. It was literally in the next room. Kirk, still suspicious, keeps pushing about this personal failure Adams seems really reluctant to talk about.
Yeah, Adams is clearly uncomfortable dodging the question.
And this failure turns out to be connected to that specific room Van Gelder mentioned back on the Enterprise, the Neural Neutralizer room.
Adams tries to downplay it massively when Kirk presses him. His description is pure misdirection.
Oh, yeah. Calls it experimental. Says they don't expect to get much use out of it. Claims it just neutralizes brain waves, relaxes the patient's mind.
And the key lies. Does no harm, of course, and the effects are only temporary. Used only for hope in the more violent cases. All very gentle, very therapeutic sounding.
A total whitewash. And then he uses it to explain Van Gelder's condition again, painting Van Gelder as the reckless one.
Right. Simon was a very stubborn man. Could have tested it safely, but no, he tried it alone and on full body. It's a pity.
Makes it sound like Van Gelder brought it all on himself. Adams is just the poor guy who had to witness the tragic accident. Classic gaslighting.
Absolutely. Shifting blame, maintaining his own innocence while describing something horrific.
But Kirk isn't having it. The contrast between Adams's calm explanation and Van Gelder's raw terror is just too stark. He insists on seeing the machine work.
And he pulls rank, essentially. One of the advantages of being a captain doctor is being able to ask for advice without necessarily having to take it. Mic drop.
Yeah. And interestingly, Dr. Noel, the psychiatrist, she initially kind of validates the idea behind it.
Right. She says, beam neutralizing has been experimented with on Earth, Captain. She's familiar with the concept, even if not this specific machine. She tries to reassure Kirk.
Yeah, she says, I can assure you that Dr. Adams has not created a chamber of horrors here. Which, ironically, just lowers their guard right before the horror is revealed.
Exactly. It makes the demonstration seem less threatening than it actually is.
So the first test seems harmless. Kirk goes into the room. Adams says he'll activate it at minimum intensity, a second or two. Just a quick demo.
But Dr. Knoll, watching carefully, sees something immediately unsettling. Kirk's face went completely blank.
Not relaxed. Blank. Vacant. Like the lights went out for a second. That's not normal relaxation.
No. That's a warning sign. Then, to show the power of suggestion, Noel gives a simple, harmless suggestion. You're hungry.
And Kirk instantly responds, almost like a reflex. You know, when we finally get through this, I'd like to locate and raid a kitchen somewhere.
Boom. Proof of concept. The device works. It implants suggestions effectively. It's chilling how easy it seems. Makes you wonder about your own thoughts sometimes, doesn't it?
It really does, but this is where it stops being a demonstration and starts being abuse. Adams takes over the controls himself.
And you just know he's cranking it up beyond minimum. He's testing Kirk now, seeing how far he can push him.
No, maybe still not fully grasping Adams's intent gives another suggestion based on that Christmas party memory.
Yeah, she suggests the more romantic version. You swept me off my feet and carried me to your cabin.
And you see Kirk struggle with this. He looks confused, uncomfortable. He's starting to internalize this fake memory, worrying about his reputation. The conflict is visible.
Even though part of him must know it's wrong, the machine is forcing the thought, the feeling, onto him. It's deeply disorienting.
But Adams isn't going for romance. He goes for the jugular. He escalates massively.
He implants this overwhelming manufactured emotion. You're madly in love with Helen, Captain. You'd lie, cheat, steal for her, sacrifice your career, your reputation.
And Kirk is in visible agony. You see the pain and the longing. He's fighting this artificial feeling that's attacking his core values, his loyalty to Starfleet.
It's psychological torture. Adams is proving he could overwrite anything. Duty, logic, identity. He's showing off his power to Noel and to himself.
And then the final proof, the ultimate test of control. Adams orders Kirk to drop his phaser and his communicator.
Symbols of his command, his very identity as captain.
And despite the obvious internal conflict, despite the pain and confusion, Kirk obeys. He drops them, still mumbling about his love for Helen.
Complete surrender of will. The Neural Neutralizer wins. It can make a Starfleet captain betray his deepest instinct.
Horrifying. And Adams's reaction. Pure, chilling satisfaction.
So gratifying. I'm so fortunate to have had a couple of excellent specimens to work with. I've learned a great deal. The specimens, he sees them as lab rats.
It reveals everything. His God complex, his utter lack of empathy. The humanitarian is a monster.
Okay, so while Kirk is going through that hell down on Tantalus, back on the Enterprise, Van Gelder is getting worse. Much worse.
Yeah, the tranquilizers aren't holding him. He's becoming frantic, desperate, trying to warn them.
Thrashing around, shouting fragments. Warn you, Captain. Dr. Adams will destroy. Just pure terror coming through.
But Kirk, tragically, is in no condition to receive that warning. The neutralizer is still messing with his head, clouding his judgment.
Right. When Spock relays his concerns, Kirk just dismisses him. His voice probably still has that slightly off, influenced quality.
He says, that's foolish. According to Adams, Van Gelder created his own problem. He's parroting Adams's lie because the machine made him susceptible to it.
The ultimate irony. The person who needs the warning most is literally incapable of hearing it.
And because of that influence, Kirk makes the terrible decision to spend the night here on Tantalus V, ignoring Van Gelder's desperate screams from sickbay.
You can just hear the agony in Van Gelder's voice in the logs. No, no, don't let them warn you, Captain. Don't let him stay. Don't hypo me. Please don't hypo me. I'll try not to fight, but you must listen. Dr. Adams will destroy.
That raw, primal fear finally pushes Spock over the edge. He realizes this is critical. Kirk is in grave danger.
Yeah, Spock, now acting captain, knows he has to do something drastic. Standard procedures aren't working. He makes a really significant choice.
He says, I must now use an ancient technique to probe into Van Gelder's tortured mind.
The Vulcan mind meld. And McCoy, despite his usual skepticism about Vulcan methods, sees the necessity. Pragmatism wins out.
McCoy's logic is sound. If there's any way we can look into this man's mind to see if what he's saying is real or delusion, we should. The stakes are too high not to try.
Absolutely. But Spock emphasizes how serious this is. The mind meld isn't a party trick. It's deeply personal for Vulcans.
He calls it a personal thing to the Vulcan people, part of their private lives, not something done lightly at all.
And there are risks, physical risks even, for Van Gelder. Spock warns him. It could be dangerous. It requires I make pressure changes, your nerves, your blood vessels.
But Van Gelder doesn't hesitate. He's desperate for the truth to come out. You must open my mind. Let me warn you, explain to you. He'll endure anything.
And the melt. It reveals everything. The unvarnished horror. Spock describes it as their minds joining. We move together, our minds sharing the same thoughts.
He gets direct access to Van Gelder's experience with the Neural Neutralizer, and it confirms their worst fears. Adams can reshape any mind he chooses.
How? He used it to erase our memories, put his own thoughts there. A complete override of personality.
Van Gelder relives the struggle, the fight against Adams's control. He was surprised it took so much power. We fought him, remember? But eventually, exhaustion, surrender.
But we grew so tired, our minds so blank, so open, that any thought he placed there became our thoughts. It's not persuasion. It's violation on the deepest level.
And that description of the emptiness, it's bone-chilling.
Yeah.
The agony of emptiness.
Yeah. Our minds so empty like a sponge, needing thoughts, begging empty loans, so lonely to be sitting there empty, wanting any word from him. That vulnerability, that need, it's terrifying.
Imagine being that desperate for any thought, even a contradictory one. He says Adams could implant anything. Love, yes. Hate, yes. Live, yes. Die, yes. Logic destroyed.
Just raw input, forced acceptance. The suffering is almost unimaginable. Such agony to be empty. Empty, oh man, so it would be.
This first-hand account, pulled directly from his mind via Spock, it's the undeniable truth. It shatters Adams's facade completely. This isn't rehabilitation.
It's psychological annihilation, full stop.
Okay, so Spock now has the horrifying proof. And back on Tantalus, maybe at the same time, maybe just after, Kirk starts fighting his way back.
Yeah, the effects of the neutralizer are strong, but Kirk's will is stronger. He's clawing his way back to himself, remembering the manipulation.
You can almost hear the gears turning as he pieces it together. Remember, Dr. Adams took the controls away from me. Do you remember the pain? And then his voice, remember, I remember.
The trauma itself becomes the key to breaking free. His mind is rejecting the foreign input, reclaiming control. It's an incredible display of resilience.
And once he's somewhat clear-headed, he knows he has to get out of that room, has to disable the system. He comes up with this desperate, risky plan.
Crawling through the vents.
Exactly. Through the air conditioning ducts and tunnels, trying to reach the colony's power supply.
His goal: short-circuit the whole thing, hoping it will knock out the main security force field, trapping them there and preventing Spock from beaming down.
It's incredibly dangerous. He knows it. Mega voltage, touch the wrong line and you're dead.
But he goes anyway, because the alternative, being subjected to Adams's treatment again, unthinkable.
He says it himself. Anything's better than Adams' treat. Saroom. It's a fight for his mind, for his soul, really.
And it works. His gamble pays off. He manages to short the power.
And the immediate result, the security force field is gone. That's the signal Spock needed.
Spock doesn't hesitate. Beams down instantly with security. They move fast.
But when they get to the Neural Neutralizer room, it's a grim scene.
They find Dr. Adams dead, inside his own machine.
Now, McCoy's analysis later is just chillingly ironic. He suggests the machine wasn't set high enough to kill him physically.
Right. But Adams was alone. McCoy wonders, can you imagine the mind emptied by that thing without even a tormentor for company?
Died of loneliness. Died of the sheer emptiness his own device created. A horrifying thought.
A truly dark, poetic justice. The manipulator, undone by the void he inflicted on others, destroyed from the inside out by his own creation.
Yeah. Profoundly disturbing. So, with Adams gone, the immediate threat is over. Later, they get word from Gelder, who's presumably taking charge, or at least is coherent now.
And the news is good, relatively speaking. Gelder confirms the treatment room had been dismantled, the equipment destroyed.
The end of the Neural Neutralizer. Its reign of terror is over. The Enterprise can finally leave Tantalus V.
Leaving behind not a resort colony, but a serious cautionary tale.
Definitely. And that final exchange between McCoy and Kirk just sticks with you. McCoy musing on Adams's death.
It's hard to believe that a man could die of moments of emptiness.
And Kirk's reply, quiet, heavy with the weight of his own experience. Not when you sat in that room.
He knows. He felt a taste of that void. It underscores just how devastating psychological torment can be. Maybe even more devastating than physical harm. It attacks the very core of being.
So, wrapping this up, what have we really seen here? This deep dive into Tantalus V, it's way more than just a gripping story. It's a really stark case study, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It shows how easily something presented as beneficial, as rehabilitation, can twist into its opposite, into total mind control.
And it hammers home just how vulnerable the human mind can be to outside influence, even when part of you is fighting back, like Kirk did.
Yeah, and it's a powerful reminder about questioning authority. Even someone universally praised, like Dr. Adams, can be deeply dangerous. That line between therapy and control, healing and erasure, it can be terrifyingly thin.
Recognizing that line is crucial. When does helping someone forget pain become destroying who they are?
Which leads us to the big, unsettling questions this whole incident raises for us, for society.
Right. If we ever did develop the technology to literally bury the past, to erase suffering, trauma, maybe even criminal thoughts. Where do we stop?
At what point does that kind of healing just become psychological annihilation? What's the cost to individuality, to free will, to just being a person?
When knowledge and tech become tools for absolute control, even if the stated intention is good, how do we guard against that?
And maybe the biggest question is the pursuit of a perfect mind, one free from flaws, pain, difficult memories. Is that pursuit itself just too dangerous?
What actually makes us human if not the sum of all our experiences? The good, the bad, the memories we cherish, and the ones that haunt us. What are we if you erase all that?
Yeah. What price is too high to pay to escape the complexities, the pains of just being human? It's something to really think about.